growing up, my father used to watch boxing with me all the time. I grew up watching Muhammad Ali and Larry Holmes and Spinks and Sugar Ray Leonard and Hagler. Any boxing fans in here? Yeah? Okay, so cool, right? And so I grew up and we used to go, this was before, right? Like before pay-per-view and all that. We used to go to like a local roller skating rink and watch like on closed circuit. I don't even remember what they called it, but it was awesome with my dad. And as I got older and started achieving some success in business, I wanted to do something special for him. I wanted to bring my dad, out of all the years growing up, he never went to a boxing match live. And I wanted to do something special for him. And so I didn't want to settle, though. I didn't want to be average. I didn't want to do it average. I wanted to give him a memory that he would never forget. Maybe some of you guys have stuff that you want to do for loved ones, for family members, for a spouse, for friends, for people that you know and care about. I know I wanted to go the distance. And so I got us, I was still living in New Jersey at the time. He was in South Florida. I got us ringside seats to a heavyweight championship bout with Evander Holyfield. And one of the greatest experiences of my life with my father was I flew him into Atlantic City. We stayed at a hotel together, which was just, cool in of itself. And then we went into the arena. And he was blown away to begin with. And I said, he said, as we were walking down the aisle to our seats, he said, "Here?" And I said, No, keep going. We walked up a few rows. "Here?" "No, Dad. Keep going. And I just let him, and I knew, right? No, keep going. He was like, "Here? Oh my God." "No, Dad, keep going." And we went up, and we were ringside, and we were around celebrities. I'll tell you on a different day, maybe I'll tell you about how I handed my phone with my wife on it, my cell phone, to O.J. Simpson, who was sitting one row up from us to the left. But nevertheless, it was an experience that my father he's unfortunately passed away, but it was an experience that he talked about like on a regular monthly basis from then on. And that to me symbolizes what it means to just not settle, to rise above, to not just get tickets to some boxing match, to not just get two fighters and show up and be like, "Hey, I hope this is okay," but to go the distance, to rise above and go for it. Now, my greatest fear with that, right? And that's what this is about. That's what these next handful of days are about. That's really what I'm about and MFA is all about. But my greatest fear, and this is kind of funny because I was nervous to share this with you. And yesterday we met with our top one mastermind, our highest level clients, and we did our annual planning session. And I shared with them how, this is what I'm about to talk to you about is something that has been on my heart for a long time. And I'm nervous because I want to make sure that you hear me and you get this. And it's my biggest fear for you guys and gals in this room. And that is this. That's that when it comes to you setting goals, when it comes to you trying to build your dream lifestyle, build your magnificent vision for yourself, your business, whatever, that you're not really being honest with yourselves in terms of what you want, that you're really settling, that you're setting smaller goals for yourself, that you're lying to yourself and you're telling yourself, "I don't really want that big house," right? I'm not a car aficionado, so I don't want a nice car. I don't really want a second home, or I don't want to take my family to Italy or to Jerusalem or whatever. I don't really want to do those things. I don't really need those things. I'm not excited about those things. You tell yourself these lies, or I'm afraid, it's too much work, or it's not worth the money, or there's other things that I can do with my money, my time, and you are convincing yourself that those things you really don't want, and what you're doing instead is you're setting small goals. You're setting small goals, and what you're doing is you're getting up every day and you're working towards these goals that aren't really the goals that you want, that aren't really the things that jack you up and juice you up inside, that aren't really the things that get you all fired up that you really want. Whether it be fear, whether it be just you don't feel you've got the time or the money or the know-how or the connections or the resources or whatever. My greatest fear for you, and I want you to be honest with yourselves later. I want you to ponder this, and I want you to make the commitment to me and to you that you are going to ponder this later in your room. What do you really want? Not what are you settling for, but what do you really want? What is that perfect vision for you? That's what I want for you. That's what I want for you. I want you to keep out in front of you that grand vision, the thing that really deep inside. Forget the know-how. We're going to talk about that, right? Forget the know-how. Forget how you get there. Forget the strategies. Forget the tactics, right? I'm going to give you all that. Right? I'll give you the blueprint. I'll give you the direction. But I want you to start with the grand vision. And I don't want you to settle. I don't want you to convince yourself that XYZ isn't what you really want when it really is. I want you to decide here, today, now, for the next 3 days, what is it that you really want? Because that's what we're going to work on getting for you. Now look, here is the thing, right? When it comes to rising above, when it comes to going for it, maybe you've got some fears. Fear, right? Fear is okay. Like maybe you're afraid. You're afraid that you're going to fail. Maybe you're afraid that you're going to do well. Maybe you're afraid that you're going to release the wrong funnel. Maybe you're afraid you're going to tap into the wrong traffic source. Here's the thing to understand, that fear is okay, right? You're not going to get to a point where you're not afraid, or you don't have some fear of, am I making the right choice or am I going down the right path? It's not about the absence of fear. It's about you choosing to have courage. That's really what it is. Courage is you taking steps, moving forward, even in the face of fear. It's you recognizing that, yes, I might be afraid. Yes, I might have some fear. Yes, I might have concern. But it's you choosing to move forward. You choosing to release your campaign. You choosing to invest a certain dollar amount into a particular traffic source, even in the face of fear. And you not succumbing to that fear. You not succumbing to the fear of, I'm afraid if I set that goal, that big vision, I'm afraid that I won't hit it. I'm afraid that I don't have the chops to hit that. I'm afraid that I don't have the resources to hit that. It's you, even in the face of that fear, choosing courage, choosing to move forward and take that action. And you've got to have that big, grand vision, right? Like you've got to have that big, grand vision. I'll tell you this, that this is how I really see success. I believe that what happens to a lot of entrepreneurs, and I want you to get this, I want you to ponder this later. I believe that what happens to a lot of entrepreneurs is this, is that they settle, they don't choose their highest goals, the goals that they don't choose that vision. They don't go after the things that really juice them up. They make excuses for those, or they put those aside. They allow themselves to get veered away from those, and they set smaller goals that don't really jack them up. And then what happens is they start going down this entrepreneurial path, and they experience bumps in the road, as we all do. They experience bumps, they experience ups and downs, they experience peaks and valleys. It's a peaks and valleys game. It's an up and down game. It is not a straight shot to the top, and anybody that tells you that it is lying to you. But what happens, breathe, is that because they don't have that vision that really fires them up, when they come face to face with that obstacle, with that bump, they succumb to procrastination. They succumb to a lack of motivation, because that thing is not really what they want, because they've settled. And so it doesn't fire them up. See, when you've got something that you really want, right, what it comes down to is this. Here's the reality. You're either committed to it or you're not. You're either committed to it or you're not. You have to ask yourself, am I committed to this vision? Am I committed to this goal? Right, the reality is, I believe that it is a matter of will. Will, meaning, right, you choosing to show up. You choosing to take another step forward. Right, like I hear folks, I used to say, my favorite word or my favorite definition from the time I was probably 20 years old when I started So from the time I was 20 when I started studying self-improvement, so I started at 20, so now it's been about 2 years. I'm just kidding. Is self-discipline. Self-discipline is, right, doing what it is that you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, regardless of how you feel. Doing what it is that you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, regardless of how you feel. And there's this thing that, and I want you to get this, and I want you to get how this relates to will, your will. People use this language of, I lack discipline. I don't have discipline, right? Or I wish I had more discipline, as if it's something to acquire, as if you could, invite somebody over and be like, look, I got more discipline. Discipline is a choice, right? That's, at the end of the day, it's a choice. You choose. You choose to do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, or you choose not to. You choose to procrastinate, or you choose not to. Don't fool yourself into thinking that it's anything else. Don't lie to yourself and tell yourself that it's anything else, because I don't want to see you do that to yourself, right? It's a choice. It's your will. You either choose to do it, or you choose not to do it. Now, maybe it's, right, so we talked about fears, and fear is okay. There's nothing wrong with fear. Be okay with fear. Recognize that it's about being courageous. You might have fear. Courage is taking action in the face of fear, right? Let's talk a little bit about time. There's this idea, people say, right, it's, I've got to find time to do things. Like, I find time. You don't find time, right? You make the time. You make the time. Right, people, you will make the time if you want it bad enough. You will find the time. If you have to wake up at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, if you have to stay up until 1 o'clock in the morning, right? There have been times, and I don't recommend this, but there have been times when I didn't go to sleep until 5 o'clock in the morning, right? Up, working like a madman for multiple days in a row, right? Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. I'm all about lifestyle, and I love it, and that's what I want for each and every one of you, and I want you to imagine that, and I want you to recognize that, look, we're going to be able to get that. I'm going to give you the blueprint. I'm going to give you the tactics. I'm going to give you the tools. I'm going to give you the direction, but you need the will. You need to be willing to show up and do the work, period. You need to be able to show up and do the work. You don't find it, you make the time. And you're going to have obstacles along the way. There's no question that you are going to have obstacles along the way. You're going to have bumps, but how you respond to those obstacles is going to determine how far you go. My daughter, I've got 2 teenage daughters, which is, it's a curse and a blessing all at the same time. They are my life, my wife, Kelly, and my 2 daughters, Samantha and Gabriella. They're 17 months apart. If you think that releasing a new funnel creates fear, wait until you guys have a daughter driving for the first time. It is the most terrifying thing in the world. But my daughter, this is funny, Samantha, of all of the sports that she could choose to play, of all the sports, she chooses when she's 8 years old to start playing volleyball. Now listen, I don't want to point out the obvious, but I don't bring a lot of the physical attributes of volleyball, right? And so I'm like, of all the sports, but she did, and she loved it, and she fell in love with it at 8 years old. And at 8 years old, she was walking under the net. When the kids were walking around to go to the other side, she was just walking under the net. But she loved it. And she continued to play, and she continued to strive to make higher and higher level teams. And along the way, she got overlooked. She got, kids got positions that she really should have gotten. She was better, but, there's a tiny little nugget out there yelling on the top of her lungs, and she had a lot of ups and downs. And throughout that whole time, as she was growing in the sport, I remembered a line from one of the Rocky movies that just stayed on the forefront of my mind, that I shared with her all the time as it relates to these obstacles and these bumps. And the line was from Rocky to his son, I believe it was Rocky 5. And he said, it ain't about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward That's how winning is done. Right? And so when you're an athlete and you shank a ball, if you're a volleyball player, it's about, you take that hit, you pick yourself up and you move forward, just like in business. Campaign didn't work in the past, big deal. Pick yourself up and move forward. Right? You weren't happy with a hire, big deal. You pick yourself up and move forward. It ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.